everybody. You've reached your Tuesday night motivation. Yes, it is Litvak Leadership Live, and we are here to talk to everyday people about matters of faith and how to live our lives. Tonight, we're talking about how to stop alienating people. But before I bring our guest, Danny Short, he's been on the show before, up for you to hear what he has to say about it. A little business. If you have not already liked and followed Litvak Leadership on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and Rumble, and Pinterest and Rumble may be going away because it's just a lot of social media platforms. You should do that because different videos are posted in different places, different comments are posted. They're all a little bit different, yet the same, but the comments are different. So please join me at my social media platforms, and you will hear more about that as we go. But really, it's all about the intersection of personal improvement, leadership, and faith. That's what we're about. So again, welcome to Litvak Leadership Live. Without any further ado, let me bring out my friend, Danny Short. Danny, what's going on?
How you doing, Sean?
I am doing well. You're so chill. You know, I'm getting everyone excited. You're like, how are you doing, Sean? So Danny is a realtor. If you are looking in the southern Indiana area for a home, and Eric Obert's here. Hello, Eric. If you're looking for a home, and Danny, what, you cover southern Indiana and where else?
That's it. Southern Indiana, 7 counties. I can sell the entire state, but we focus down here in the southern part.
Okay, very good. Danny is a good guy, an honest guy, and he will take care of you right in this dynamic real estate market. So, Danny, let's talk about real estate for 3 minutes.
All right, let's go.
At first, it was great. Then there were 0 houses on the market because of COVID. Then there was a little bit more houses and everybody was buying, and then the interest rates went up double. Right. However, some people are like, yeah, the interest rates are still low because they have a historical perspective from 50 years ago. So what say you about real estate right now?
I would call it a more normal market. It's leveled out, kind of plateaued a little bit. We'll see what happens with rates later in the week. Looks like another 0.75% bump from the Fed. That always messes with the 10-year Treasury. So that's what mortgage rates are tied to. But you're right, historically low interest rates still. And we're seeing more inventory, more than I've seen in the last 2 years.
Absolutely.
And there's creative ways to buy down your rate to make it, closer to what it was a few months ago. So that's where I come in. I consider myself a pretty decent negotiator. So I like to work those things into deals.
All right, cool. I mean, I know my mother has her condo on the market in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And she was saying she doesn't see what the big deal with rates are because when her and my father bought their first home, rates were at 17%.
Right.
So he thinks it's still a bargain right now.
Right. Yeah. It's just it really messes with people's purchasing power.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah. If you live through the effects of the Carter administration, then these are great rates.
They're still great rates. All right, so let's talk about how to stop alienating people. Now, Danny, you're a nice guy, you're a direct guy, and I just have a feeling, like me, you need to, at least I know I need to, bridle myself and embrace the word moderation, because like Jack Nicholson said in, what's the movie that he was in with Tom Cruise and Demi Moore?
Oh, yeah, in the military movie.
In the military movie, I think most people can't handle the truth.
Can't handle the truth, right?
You can't handle the truth, and if you tell people the truth, or if you tell it to them like you want to, you will be alienating people. What say you? Is that a struggle for you at times?
It is, and it's been a real struggle with my mouth in in politics, especially. I'm also a county councilman, but
Yeah.
I've really had to temper back the not only what I said, but the how I said it. The tone that I used.
Tone, yeah.
It's interesting that you brought up the military movie, because just last week I heard a little speech from a former Top Gun pilot, and he was saying that they speak the truth no matter what, and that they want people to get back home to their families. So
Right.
they speak the truth 100% of the time. They try to do it with love, but if it makes somebody mad, that's just going to happen, because their job is to keep them as safe as they can. I think our approach is a little different in the people we deal with in our daily lives, but I thought it was an interesting point, that to them, truth is love, because we want to see you get back home to your family. So this is something that I've had to learn in business and in politics, and it's really, as I get older, it's getting better. So main thing for me is to stop and think about how I want to say something and the tone that I want to use.
And I'll tell you, I agree with that wholeheartedly. For me, also, it's a matter of recognizing the audience that I am in front of, because you can say something with a smile on your face and jovialness in your heart. And if people don't want to hear it, they just don't want to hear it. And maybe it's better to go a different direction. And that's where wisdom comes in. One of the first, when I became a Christian, one of the first scriptures that I heard preached on by a gentleman named Kenneth Copeland was this one, Proverbs 4:7. And I thought he was making this up. I didn't even realize it was in the Bible. Wisdom is principle, therefore get wisdom, and with all you're getting, get understanding. And when I hear the word wisdom, and with all you're getting, get understanding, it's a matter to me of understanding the situation you're in, understanding who you're in front of, understanding the effects of your words. What do you think?
Yeah, we call that reading the room. You've got to read the room, right? Yeah, and great verse to go off of. But it sounds so simple. Just get wisdom, right? Just get wisdom, and then get understanding after you get wisdom. So, there's a couple facets to that. And I'll go back to what I said a minute ago. The wisdom comes with age and experience, and you can read books and talk to different people, but you've got to be intentional about recognizing what situation you're in.
Sure.
And if you don't learn from those situations and make the next time better than the way you handle that situation, then you've just missed the point. So being intentional about what you're learning from each situation really helps. And then the understanding part for me, I internalize that a lot, because I need to understand, how will this affect me? And if it doesn't, can I just let certain things go? If it does affect me, then what's the best way to approach it?
And when you're talking about, something affecting you, I don't know, I just think of, is this the mountain worth dying on?
Exactly.
Is this worth going to war verbally? Is this worth potentially getting into strife? Now, if you're on social media, obviously everything is worth arguing with people about.
Yeah, we're going to change lots of people's minds.
Do things on social media. But when you're in front of people, is it really worth it? And I think it's almost worse on social media, because there it's documented forever with no tone at all, so people can read it however they want to.
Yeah, I'm bad about sending text in my line of work. There's a lot of text that fly around back and forth, and most of it's business related. So
Mm-hmm.
tone, if we're just talking details, sometimes tone is not as important. But when you're dealing with some personal situations, or you're in the early stages of some kind of business deal or something, you should probably just pick up the phone. And not only does it take less liability, it also, someone can hear your tone. And so I did that today. I'd been texting a certain person about a business deal 3 or 4 times, and I was like, this isn't getting through. I'm just going to pick
Yeah.
up the phone and call.
Yep.
And it was a simple 60-second call, and that handled it.
Well, and that reminds me of something, and it's amazing that I hear Gary Vaynerchuk, foul-mouthed guy that he is. Do you know who Gary V is?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Foul-mouthed guy, really smart. And what does he talk about? Be kind to everybody always. Be nice. Be
Right.
kind. And then he throws down 3 F-bombs. Okay. But when you see videos of him, and granted, he's got a crew following him everywhere, because he doesn't post, he documents, and then he slices things out. He seems to be, from what we see that he puts out there, one of the kindest people on earth when he runs into his fans. Don't know what he's like in a boardroom, but when he runs into his fans, kindest guy. And I think about situations where I've been in, where I've had to deliver a message to people, and I've known it's going to be a hard message, and I don't know if I've delivered it in a kind way always. Is that something that you've seen where you've had a struggle?
Sure. When I was in the corporate world, and out of business school, they kind of tell you to, wrap criticism in a compliment, or a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
Start with a compliment, drop in the hard truth of what you're trying to say, and then end with a compliment. That works sometimes. The best thing to do is, like we were saying, read the room or read the individual. People are motivated by different things. Some people are motivated by a pat on the back. Some people can accept the criticism because they want to do a good job. So, you've got to know who you're talking with, and what motivates them, and then approach it from that standpoint.
Absolutely. Well, and when you're talking, to a group, or you're leading a group, I think so often people get involved in their own goals, but they don't necessarily put themselves aside. At least I know this is a challenge that I've had, and look at the dreams and goals that other people have in the, that they are working with, and look at helping them fulfill those goals, with not only to help them, but with the assumption that ultimately that's going to help themselves. But they have to look beyond themselves. And I think that's a different, a difficult skill set, to choose to help others, as opposed to, motivating others so you win.
Very true. And that's one of those lessons that most people have to see played out before they understand how that works. The real estate world is a small community, and we take care not to alienate one another, because we're gonna meet those people again, and we're gonna do a deal with those people again. So, we take care to treat each other with respect, and keep that community close and the communication going.
You and I both work in our professional life, at least in a portion of our professional life, a large portion of it, on a commission basis. Mm-hmm. And it is, sometimes, if you are chasing the commission and not chasing helping each other. There's an author, Larry Levine, author of Selling from the Heart, where he talks about commission breath, that people know when you're chasing that money and trying to take them as a peg and put them into something that they shouldn't be. And I've learned, especially during COVID, that people will buy when they're ready to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my job to provide a solution to them. But boy, can't they decide quicker sometimes? How do you work through that when someone's looking for a home?
Well, I guess there's a lot of similarities, but for me, I play the long game in real estate because, um, average for people moving is, every 5 to 6 years. And so I want to work with them again, and I want them to
Mm-hmm.
tell, their friends and family that I did a good job for them. So communication's key. And if you can be more than honest, you have to be more than honest. You don't want to push through a deal, leaving out some details to whoever you're working with, and it comes back. And not only is it unethical, it's just not a good way to retain clients. And so if it's not the right deal for them, then we move on. I try to keep the pressure low. I know they're looking for a house, or they're trying to sell their house, or whatever it may be. So everything is way above board, and communicate all the time. And I've had some situations that were sticky and didn't go the way clients were expecting, but we got to talk through that and never ever do something that, because there was a saying, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 20 seconds to destroy it.
I was
Yeah,
going to say 2 minutes, but
yeah,
yes,
something like that. That's not something that you want to do, because this industry will eat you up when it comes to that.
Well, and it's interesting. Your industry, my industry, business used to be all about what have you done for me lately, and now it's really turned into what can I do for you. There's a guy that I know that recently separated with his company, and I reached out to him. I said, hey, if there's anyone that you see that I'm connected with on LinkedIn, let me know. And he's like, oh, well, can you and I schedule a time to talk? And I was like, sure. So we scheduled a time. Last week, we hopped on the phone together and we talked for about 15 minutes, and he had a bunch of good stuff going on already. And when we got to a certain point in the conversation, he was like, Sean, what can I do for you? And here I was getting on the call, I thought, to help him. And he's like, well, what can I do for you? And
Right.
and I kind of kicked myself because it made me remember I should be ending every conversation like that, or at least have that be top of mind. What else can I do for you? How else can I help you? Make that a lifestyle approach.
Yes. Yeah. It's a different point of view, and like you were alluding to, the commission breath, like the business will come to you if you are if you have your focus right, and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're treating people the way they need to be treated, then the business will come. So the question should always be, not only is it a great icebreaker at the beginning of a conversation, it's a great remembrance at the end of one. What do you need? What can I do for you? I had lunch with a gentleman a couple months ago, and he did not tell me why he wanted to have lunch. And the first thing he said is, what's going on in your world? And I told him, and we created a client relationship there. And I said, well, what's going on in your world? And so he told me the reason for lunch, and we created another client relationship there. So be open, help people. It comes back to you.
So how does it work in your industry with collaboration? I know that in my industry, whether it's between salesmen working in the same company, or two different companies coming together on a project where we know we can bring greater value, partnering up, although we see the end goal, sometimes that collaboration can be very difficult because people, are looking over their shoulder the whole time to be like, okay, am I getting my piece of the deal?
Sure. So real estate's a little tricky because there are a lot of brokers who will only work with certain companies as far as mortgages, closings, titles. And I don't even want to know what's going on behind the scenes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
From day one, when I started selling, I gave people 3 or 4 names. These are people that I've worked with before. They're fantastic. They're all super honest. I don't get anything from any of them. So you pick one and go from there. But there is a lot of collaboration in our area, but some people work in teams, and that works out well for them. Some people are independent, on their own. But there's collaboration with every part of, a sale of a piece of property, from financing to inspection, title search, home warranties, repairs. There's collaboration all the way through, and we know who we can trust, and I like to keep it to where I have a pool of potential companies or people that I recommend, but I don't single it down to one because I don't want to be seen as steering people toward a certain company for a kickback or something. I don't ever want that claim.
So when you're collaborating with someone or considering collaborating with them, and you see that they're really strong in a skill set, how do you communicate with them without, telling them how you admire that skill set without sounding pandering?
Well,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough question. I mean, to me, I've seen people do their work and they've proven themselves. And so that's a big part that just shows me I can trust that when I turn my client over to you, you're not going to kill this deal for me.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to work together to keep this going and pushing through to the end. And I'm just honest with people. If they do something, like if I get a prompt phone call back, thank you for the communication. Not everybody does that. So just, you don't have to be, like their number one fan, but just be honest with them. If they do something you like, hey, I appreciate that. That makes life a whole lot easier. And, I appreciate the effort.
So as a faith man, because I know you're active in your church, you have the Lord in your heart, you walk your life out as a Christian. How do you keep your heart pure? Because I'll tell you, in sales, it can be difficult sometimes, just with attitudes, lifestyle issues, people being deceitful, people wanting to, if we do this, we can juice up the price a little, and the customer will think that, they're only actually, that they're getting a good deal when they're not. How do you work through all that?
Well, so I sold real estate 20 years ago for a while, and I was a much younger man then, and it was with a larger brokerage, and it was a lifestyle that they lived. It was drinks out in the evening, and just more of a sorority, fraternity feel to it. So when I got back into the business, I intentionally didn't go with a larger brokerage because I didn't want that atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
I want to provide superb service, and on a smaller scale as far as who I deal with, and where I can call the shots. So as far as you just got to be diligent all the time and be on the lookout, and because there's a lot of traps you can fall into, and things have been offered, and you just got to resolve from your own point of view that you're not going to fall into those traps. You're not going to get that kind of name for yourself. You're not going to be tempted with that stuff. And, it's more of a, life choice than it is a business choice. It's so much easier to do it, from the start, and then you don't have to worry about it going forward. So that's where, personal life and business crossover is, be truthful, be honest, steer clear of anyone. I have no problem cutting people off who repeatedly push things like that in my direction. I'll give you a couple chances, tell you about it, and then, I don't have time for that. So,
I've heard it said, and it's a lifestyle choice of mine, that it's easier to just tell people the truth, even if it's painful, because then you don't have to remember what you actually told them for when it comes back around.
Yeah. And you can word the truth in a way that lessens the blow, and still gets the point across. But anything that tries to lead you in a different direction than the one that you've charted, it's just not worth going after.
So when someone comes to you with what you would consider a fruitless pursuit, but they really want to pursue it, what do you do? Do you give it a shot? Do you try and let them down? And if they don't, figure out what you're trying to do, you still pursue it? Or do you just cut bait and walk?
Yeah, it just really depends on how close I am to the person and what the pursuit is. But, explaining what the endeavor is going to take and what the outcome may be is the first step. Just being honest, like, this is way more work than what, I think you're putting into it, or, the result isn't going to sustain, the effort. The juice isn't worth the squeeze on that one. So, but it just really depends on, if I'm closer to the person, then, hey, if you're really into it, let's give it a shot. I'll roll with you for a while and see what happens. With some truth in there that, this is going to be a tough endeavor, or, may not have the result that you're expecting.
So we've gone 28 minutes. You've given me some really heartfelt insights into how you think as to how to stop alienating people. I'd like you to take the next, couple minutes to speak directly to those that are watching us now, and those that'll be watching on replay, because it was interesting as I was promoting throughout the day in bits and pieces. I had multiple people say, yeah, 7 o'clock's not good for me. Will this be on later? And I was like, yes, go to Litvak Leadership on YouTube. Make sure you hit like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so they can watch it. So what I'd like you to do is speak to everyone who will be watching this and those watching now. And you tell them, what is the Danny Short way to help stop alienating people?
Well, my wife and I have a support group that we do at church, and it's basically based on truth and grace. And so what we found is a lot of people are heavy in one or the other. They give too much grace and they don't speak the truth, or they're heavy-handed on truth and don't give enough grace. And the book that we teach from and lead our support group with is called Messy Grace. And the author talks about basically like a rubber band between two fingers. And, one side's grace and one side's truth. And that tension in the middle is where the love is. And that's where we need to be operating between those two. And so, you need to check your style and, realize if you're too heavy on grace and you need to be speaking more truth, or if, like I used to be, and I probably still am, truth heavy. And, but that's where me, starting to pause and think about what I'm getting ready to say and changing my tone has helped out, especially with, us leading this group and this, and reading this book. So, that's my advice, is to take inventory of yourself and, realize if you're too heavy on grace or too heavy on truth, and adjust, because, you're not going to be effective if those two are out of balance.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think anytime people take inventory of themselves and they do it truthfully, right, for themselves, and like you're talking about, giving themselves some grace too. I know I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but nonetheless, people sometimes just keep plowing ahead going, it's going to change, it's going to change, it's going to change, without actually thinking about it. So I think that is some tremendous advice. So
there's a theory about that, about things don't change, right? Like, it takes an outside force to change. Yeah,
it does. So Danny, thank you for being my guest this week as we were discussing how to stop alienating people. You've got some great insight, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the live stream.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. And everyone, next week, we are going to have Bruce Himmelblau is coming back to the show, and we're going to be discussing the power of listening and moderation. One of my favorite words, moderation. Hey, Eric, thank you for being here. So again, next week, the power of listening and moderation, because there's a reason God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. That's it for now. Thank you for being here to watch Litvak Leadership Live, and we'll see you next week. See ya.